is that we all talk about happiness and trying to find a job that makes us happy, a relationship that makes us happy, or a weight that we're happy with for our bodies, right? And what I've realized, and especially in the last few years writing this book, is that for me, it's not about happiness. For me, it has been the journey to find inner peace. And for me, the gift in my book and the gift of having a public platform like getting to speak on a podcast is being able to share with people, if you can figure out how to have a greater sense of inner peace, that is the ticket. That is the key. Because then you can ride the roller coaster wave of whatever is happening in life if you have a sense of inner peace. And it provides a sense of calm. It quiets down the chatter, and it provides a sense of calm that comes from like deep, deep, deep within.
Hello and welcome back to Journey of a Fearless Female. I am your host, Paola Rosser, and this week my guest is Jeanne Collins. She's an award-winning interior designer who left the corporate world behind to find her true self through design and internal reflection. Her firm, JerMar Designs, works with executives and entrepreneurs, focusing on projects that combine sophistication and balance with inner and outer wellness. Winner of the 2022 Luxe Magazine Red Award, she was recently nominated as an HGTV Designer of the Year. She chronicles her journey and the approach that changed her life and her work in her memoir, To Feed In: Lessons from an All-In Life. Everybody, please welcome Jeanne. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited for you to be here. Let's talk about your journey as a fearless female. Let's go back to the very beginning, who you were before all of this began.
I just love the subject matter, by the way, and the title of your podcast, Fearless Leader, is just, it's so great. I'm 53 years old, and I spent 22 years in corporate America as an advertising sales executive. And I was a single mom. I worked my way up. I managed a sales team. I was the only VP in sales. For a long time, I was the only VP at all. Then the only VP in sales. And really didn't know it at the time, but I kind of defined myself as a VP of sales and a single mother. Those were like my two traits as to who I was as a person. And so there was a lot in my journey of things where I was a fearless female, just in terms of moving up the corporate ladder and only being the only woman at the board table. But for me, I think what matters more in my life is what I've done over the last 4 years. So in January of 2020, I got fired from that nice big VP job, the job that I thought I would never get fired from, but I did. And I really had to figure out, like, who was I going to be when I grew up? I was about to turn 50, and it was also right before COVID and right before the lockdown. And I had to figure out who in the world I was going to be and what did I want to do. And so I very quickly had to figure that out and figure out, more importantly, not only what did I want to do, but what did I want my life to be like? Because I realized after I got fired that I was not long away from like actually having like a total nervous breakdown from the stress of what was happening and physically falling apart. But when you're a single parent, you have a massive mortgage, like you have crazy bills. Like I didn't know anything else other than corporate America. And so I did a lot of reflecting, a lot of networking. I had an incredible coach who was trying to help me because I hadn't written a resume in 12 years. And I really decided that I wanted to do something I loved. I wanted to wake up every morning and love my job. And I had to work. I knew I was going to have to work for at least another 20 years being a single parent. Like there's at least 20 more years in me. And if I had just done that last career for 22 years and been really successful, imagine what I could do with the next 20 if I was doing something that I loved. So I had no business and no right to be doing this, but I decided that I was going to start an interior design firm. And that was my passion. And that was what I did as a hobby. That was what I loved, but I had zero professional experience in that. And I also had zero experience in being a small business owner. Also, I knew nothing. I was like, I'm being an entrepreneur. What are you talking about? I like my steady paycheck. I like my health insurance paid by somebody else. And all of a sudden I made this decision. And I just jumped all in and I decided this is what I'm going to do. And so I launched my company. I incorporated. I went back to school. I did 2 programs at the same time. And I started my company in May of 2020 as an interior designer. And really, I had to be somewhat fearless. Like people are like, how did you do it? Weren't you scared? I'm like, of course, I was terrified. What did I know what I was doing? But I felt like if I was following my passions, it was going to somehow work out.
Yeah.
And along the way, a year and a half ago, I decided I was going to write a book. I knew nothing about writing a book. I do have a degree in communications, and I'm a really good public speaker being in sales, but I knew nothing about writing a book. I decided
Okay.
I'd jump all in, and I wrote a book.
All right.
And
So before we
yeah,
talk about your
like,
book
whoa.
journey,
Yeah.
let's go
So here we
back
go.
to let's go back to the moment where you received that phone call and they
Yeah.
said, "We're letting you go." Like what, you're 50 years old, like you said, you've checked all the boxes, you got the job, you've been working in corporate America, and it is a huge safety net to have a steady paycheck and to have like you said, your health care paid for, because that shit's expensive.
So expensive. Oh my goodness.
And you're in this moment where you are a single mom and now they're telling you we're letting you go in the biggest pandemic of the like the century,
Ever.
right?
Right.
And
Ever of our lives.
what was your first initial reaction? And did you have sort of kind of like a moment where you were like, what am I going to do? Panic, terror, any of that come in?
Oh, I mean, the emotions covered all the gamuts. The first emotion was, how dare they do this to me? That was the first emotion. Like, are you kidding me? How
Mhm.
can they be doing this to me? So definitely the whole victim complex like took over very quickly. And it was, how dare they? How dare they do this to me after everything I've done for them and everything I've given them and all the things that is our natural response to being
Mhm.
harmed is, how dare they do this to me? And then it was a gamut of emotions. So it was a gamut of people reaching out and me being so touched by the people who reached out and talked about how much I had touched their lives and that, they offered to help. How many people offered to help was so inspiring.
Mhm.
And people offered to network for me and help me was really inspiring. And then there were moments where I woke up just in total terror. Like, how am I going to pay my mortgage? Like, how is that going to happen? And how am I going to find another job at this level, at this pay grade, when, you know what? Like, my kid might be coming home next week and we don't know for how long either. And that
Mhm.
was terrifying. So COVID added this whole other layer of terrified just in life in general. And then, like, wow. And the other thing, and then there was also great sadness because I loved my team and I loved the people I worked with. And some of them I had known for 11 years. I mean, like, we had grown up together, marriages, divorces, children. I mean, like, we had grown up together. And so there was also an incredible sadness. So it is an emotional roller coaster. I think I was really fortunate that I already had a pretty strong background in mindset and mindfulness. So I very quickly, was able to talk myself into like, okay, this victim thing, like, you can't spend a lot of time in that space because nothing good is going to happen with you
Yeah.
living in the victim space. Nothing
Yeah.
positive is going to come. You can bitch and moan. Like, I have this thing I say, like, you can complain for 24 hours and then you must move on. Um, so I did take my like short period of time to do that. But then I was like, nothing's going to get created from that. I
Yeah.
need to figure out how to sit and be more open. And I really started journaling a lot and really pulling into things that I had sort of walked away from in
Mhm.
terms of helping myself get grounded, reading a lot about mindset, reading a lot about, daring greatly and becoming one with
Mm.
the universe, right? Brene Brown and Gabby Bernstein, some of my favorite books, and just really started like looking inward and being like, okay, we got to find the answers inward, or not even necessarily the answers, but some comfort inward, in order to deal with the emotional roller coaster of fear and sadness and anger. And then
Yeah.
also there was a little part of me that was like, huh, I kind of am now free. I wonder what could
Yes.
happen next. So there is like, that's on the other side of the fear
Of the roller
is,
coaster of emotions.
and the
Yeah.
roller coaster emotion is also this like, huh, I always
Yeah.
said if I won the lottery, I would walk away from this job in a heartbeat. Well, I didn't win the lottery, but I'm walking away from this job in a heartbeat, like cold turkey cut off.
Yeah. I
So
love the
this,
honesty of like when
like,
you lose your job, because I've also lost my job multiple times because I was in real estate and it's a
yeah,
wild roller coaster, that
it is.
industry. But like I love the honesty because you do kind of, you've put a lot of effort. It's like a breakup of a relationship. whether it's a corporate job or, just you're working for someone and they let you go, it does that feeling of like, what did I do wrong? When you're it feels like you're being broken up with. And like you said, you
Yes.
go through the roller coaster of emotions, like, wait a minute, I put in so much time. I gave you all my effort. I like gave you my energy and you're just going to let me go. Like, do you not see the
Right.
huge
The
laundry
trail of
list of
goodness.
right of what I've done and what I've contributed to your company to make it grow. And then you do go through that feeling of like, I'm letting go of all these friends that you created in the workspace. I don't know if you experienced this, but I experienced where I got laid off because I got laid off in 2008 when the first like economic crash happened when Obama was president. And I just remember like nobody wanted to talk to me because they were
Isn't
afraid
that
that
weird?
yes, they were afraid they were going to catch what I had or whatever, and they were going to be let go next. And so it
Right.
was just like this.
If they show that they're friends with you, isn't that I saw that too. It was so weird.
It was really weird. And then you feel like so isolated, like, oh, well,
Yes.
then, and like you said, I didn't have the foundation of mindset and like what to do. I was lost and I went into this place of like, oh my gosh, like there's something wrong with me. So I love that you did that and that you already had the foundation of mindset and listening to Gabby Bernstein and, Brene Brown, which is two of my most incredible people that I love. But yeah, I love that you took the time to journal and that you looked inward to figure out what makes you happy, aside from all the things. And I love that you saw it in a perspective of if I won the lottery, what would I do? Because this is a lottery. It's just like every other breakup. At first, you're feeling like sad that they broke up with you, but then you realize, oh, it's their loss. I actually am a great person and I can move on and do something better.
Right. But it takes a moment to
Mhm.
and the ebb and flow. I remember being on the phone with people and laughing so hard and being so happy and so grateful, and then literally in tears half an hour later and feeling like when you talked about control, feeling like I had no control over my emotions. I was like, who
Mm,
am I? This like up down roller coaster because it is a flood of every emotion you can imagine all happening at once. And it does feel very out of control
yeah.
until it gets into control. Even the little things felt out of control to me. Things like, oh my goodness, my entire personal calendar is living on that corporate laptop. Like every doctor's appointment, every, like basic nitty gritty things that could send my brain into a spiral
Yeah.
of, I haven't had a personal calendar in 10 years. Every contact information's in there, every password, every, my daughter's orthodontist appointments for the next 3 years are in there. So just like some of the basic stuff in life, like, oh
Yeah.
wow, I need to like really get another computer and I ooh,
Yeah,
health insurance.
like earlier you were saying you were defined by your title,
Yeah.
and so you carried that as the definition of who you were. Even just now telling the story about your calendar, like because I've had so many corporate jobs and I just always remembered, well, in my soul, I always thought I'm not going to be here for very I just never thought I was ever going to be at any corporate job for very long. So I
That's
never
so
really
funny.
like put my whole life into the corporate computer, but I did have friends that would do that they put all of their personal stuff on the corporate computer and then they got fired. And when you get fired or you get let go abruptly, they shut you off immediately. You have no access
Immediately.
to that. And so their whole entire person that they created, their persona, that was the title that was on that business card that was in that computer, and now it's gone. And then to add the layer of the pandemic,
Right.
like I can't even imagine. I mean, I can because you're talking about it. One minute you're laughing, and the next minute you're, bawling to tears trying to
Yeah.
figure out what's your next move.
What am I going to do now? Yeah. And who am I? I think the who am I or who do I want to be was really hard because when you feel like you were talking about the relationship and the breakup, it's such a rejection. And
Hmm.
it was like, wow, I gave this my all. I gave this career my all. It mattered so much. It was so important to me. And I got rejected. And it's like, okay, now what? Is that person that I think I am in that job? Is someone else going to want me?
Yeah.
Or no? Like, is there something wrong with me now? And is anyone ever going to want me? And the fear of the new. also, I think whenever you're coming into a change, whether it be a relationship or a job or anything, even trying a new diet, it's all new. And so the unknown of the new can be very terrifying. And it's exciting, but it's also equally as terrifying at the same time if people are really honest about it. Like the
Yeah.
fear of the unknown is terrifying. And that's why so many people don't take risks and don't take chances, because that fear for them is paralyzing and they can't
Yeah.
get past it. And it has more weight than the excitement side. And so I found the key is figuring out, how do you make the excitement side a little higher on the scale and on the pendulum than the fear side, because the fear side is still there. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. That's a complete lie. I don't know anyone who's not terrified. Every business owner I know is terrified
Yeah.
of certain things. I mean, it's just reality. But you are able to lessen the fear and have the excitement, and the energy of what you can create, and the possibility kind of trump the fear and just be, higher up on the scale. But they both still exist. You have to manage them both.
Yes, absolutely. Being an entrepreneur is a whole nother healing journey within itself because like you said, you're putting yourself out there. You're no longer in that consistency and that safety net because when you're in corporate, it's consistent, it's safe, well, as safe as it can be until you lose your job or your position, you know. But being an entrepreneur, now you have to be all on your own. And like you said earlier, you have to figure out how to pay for your health insurance. You have to figure out how to file your LLC. You have to figure out how to start a business. You're putting yourself out there. Like Brene Brown says, I'm putting myself in the arena. And
Yep.
now I'm going to be the person that can be heckled, that could be made fun of, that could fail,
Mm.
that, could fall flat on their face and run back with their tail between their leg to corporate. It's a huge like undertaking. So talk about the beginning part of your journey of starting that business and like some of the fears that may have came, to you during that time.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm like listening to you and I'm like, I can hear my heart like racing more. Because one of the other things when you start an entrepreneur, and I'll talk about the journey too, is it all falls on you. And so if you're not used to being in that environment where you are ultimately responsible, which has the pros and the cons, you can create and you can create it and look at it and be like, I did that. Like me, all by myself. I manifested and created that. But then that also means I own all of this, for the
Hmm.
better or worse. Right. And so it's a little daunting. So, one of the things I did in the very beginning, because I was so overwhelmed by the big picture process of starting a business, there was so much I didn't know. And there are so many books about how to start a business that I couldn't even find one that I felt was like concise enough for me. Um, so, what I did is the Small Business Association offers free coaches, and you can get matched up with a free business coach, which is normally someone who is retired, who lives in your area, who may or may not be in your same line of work, but has something in common with what you're trying to accomplish. And so I applied and I got a gentleman as my business coach for free. And that was great because he really like could lay out for me, okay, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to do. This is where you need to go research about an LLC versus an S Corp versus a C Corp. So he was able to kind of lay out a path for me. So I had a plan forward. I was like, okay, this is what we're starting with. Okay. I need to do this research. And he would send me off with these tasks. Who's your target audience? How are you going to generate revenue? So he would send me out with these business tasks, which helped me focus because I would focus on his questions and his tasks. And then I would be better able to do what I needed to do to get started. The next thing I did after I did form my LLC, started my business, knew I needed a website, I started asking for help within the own industry. So, like I said, I was not an interior designer and I was
Hmm.
going back to school for interior design, but I did in interior design school, they don't teach you very much about running a business. They
Mm-mm.
teach you about spatial planning and fabrication and all of the things that you
And the
need to know.
palettes and the colors and all
Correct,
that.
exactly. Color theory and
Yeah. And you're like, I need
Photoshop
to
and
know how to file my
AutoCAD.
taxes.
That is exactly it. I'm like, I need to understand. When you say a purchase order, what does that mean? I don't
Right.
understand. What's the difference between a purchase order and a bill and an invoice? Like, I had no idea what I was talking about. You're talking about markup. You're talking about net pricing. I had no idea. I'd have to
Yeah.
Google everything. Anytime anyone said anything, I'd have to Google what they were talking about because I didn't know. So, one of the things that I did that I found was really, really helpful is I got comfortable asking for help. And so I would reach out. So in the interior design world, we have what are called field vendors. So for manufacturers such as a company like Cravat, for example, I have a field sales rep. She's a person who will come to my house or my studio if I want and tell me about the latest products.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to her and I said, hey, listen, I'm new to this. I don't necessarily understand all of this. Do you have 20 minutes over the phone, over Zoom, right? Because remember, it was COVID, so no coffee, 20 minutes coffee over Zoom to answer some questions for me. And I cannot tell you, every single time I asked and put myself out there to ask for help and ask for just like 20 minutes, one woman gave me an hour and a half the first time I met her. And
Wow.
people are really willing to help people who are new entrepreneurs. They really
Mm-hmm.
are. Like people want to help and share their experience finding a bookkeeper, marketing, understanding how the industry works, understanding profit margin, understanding purchasing, whatever it is for your industry. People really are willing to help. If you put yourself out and you're a little vulnerable, like, hey, I'm new. And guess what? I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to this. I can design a beautiful room, but I don't know what I'm doing on the back end of a business. Would you mind helping me with your
Yeah.
experience? I just want you to share what you know. And can I ask you a few questions? And I learned so much that way. And that's free advice. And also, it's free connections because it's
Yes.
amazing how you get. And some of the people in the very beginning when I started my business, I am so loyal to them. I buy exclusively from them because they were willing to give me half an hour of time and they were so generous and kind and really helped me. And so now
Yeah.
we have relationships. And so the connections that you can make by just like raising your hand and saying, I'm new. I'm new to being an entrepreneur. I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
That's actually a beautiful little testament because I
Thanks.
love the book 21 Success Principles by Jack Canfield, and
Yeah,
one of his success principles is become an ask hole. He says
I
just
totally.
ask and ask and ask. You'd be surprised how many entrepreneurs, millionaires, billionaires
Totally.
want to talk about how they got there. They want to give you advice. They want to
Right.
share their wisdom and their knowledge. You'd be very surprised. And in that time, yes, you couldn't do like coffee, but if you invite them out to coffee or to lunch and you buy them a $20 sandwich, well,
Totally.
with economy now, a
Right.
$30
Depending on where you live.
sandwich. Yeah,
Right.
depending on where you live, you buy them a $30 sandwich, you're going to get a wealth of knowledge and wisdom to help you on your path. And I love that you did that. And I love that you're loyal to those people that actually took the time out of their day to like help you out on your journey. That's incredible. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your book writing journey and when you decided to write this book called 2 Feet In. What was the title? 2 Feet
2 feet
In
in, lessons from
Lessons
an
from
all in
All in
life.
Life.
Lessons from
Yes.
an all in life. Yeah. So
What was
that's
your
another
what was your
crazy
decision
story.
making factor? What were you like, oh, I need to write this down?
So I had no intention of writing a book. I had always said as an interior designer for the last 2 years, I was like, I mean, what interior designer doesn't want a coffee table book of your projects, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone. How great would that be? So I always said, like, I want to write a book someday, but I want it to be an interior design coffee table book, and I need a bigger portfolio to do it. And I want to figure out the subject matter. I don't want it to just be pretty spaces. I want there to be some sort of message or something that I'm going to write about. So I'd always said, in my future, there will be a coffee table book, something about interior design. And I had subscribed to a bunch of different, newsletters and stuff about writing books. And I got an email from someone that was having an hour and a half seminar. It was a free seminar about how to write your own book. And I opened the email, I read it, and then I closed the email. And then a couple of days later, I was scrolling through my emails and I stopped at that same email again and I read it again. And I thought, huh, I've learned from experience that the universe talks to you if you're willing to listen. And I am a big proponent of if something makes you pause, there's a reason why you're pausing. And I kind of was like, huh, like, I mean, I get hundreds of emails and I saw this one again a second time. And I looked at my calendar and I was open during the time that this Zoom call was happening. And I thought, you know what? Why not? Let's give it an hour and a half. I'm pausing for some reason at this email and it's free. So I signed up for this email, hour and a half email about writing a book. And by the end of the hour and a half, the back half an hour of the Zoom call was about mind mapping. And so for people who don't know what mind mapping is basically brainstorming about a subject. And so they had sent you a piece of paper. You're supposed to print it out in advance. And it was a mind map. And a mind map looks like a sun. So there's a circle in the middle with all these lines that go out on the side. And they did their talk for an hour and then they let everybody go spend 15 minutes working on their mind map. And your mind map is supposed to be your concept of the book. And by the time the Zoom call was over, I had a page full of an entire book. I had the subjects, I had the chapters, I had the subchapters, I had the main themes, and it was all about my life. And it was about the lessons and the things I had learned in my life, because I have a lot of people say to me, the things that you did in your corporate career are very inspiring. And then the way that you started your own business is very inspiring. And the fact that you've been a single mother for 17 years, very inspiring. You own your own house, super inspiring. Um, and so I started writing it based on that. And so I got to the end and I looked at this piece of paper and I was like, there is so much in there that I've learned. If I could share one piece of this with one person and have them change their lives for the good, this could be really cool. And that could feel like I had a purpose and it was giving back to me. And so I committed to writing a book. And I hired a book coach and I committed that I was going to write every day from 5 to 6. And so it was on my calendar every day from 5 to 6. And I did. I wrote every day from 5 to 6, except for a 3-month stint when I like slipped into a state of depression and couldn't write. So, and that's in the book too, like in full transparency, like, how could I be writing about living my best life when I'm depressed? That doesn't work. So I took a little hiatus, but the journey of taking the hiatus and how I overcame it and what I learned is in the book. And so I decided I was going to write this book. And 2 feet in came to me after I'd written the book. A friend of mine had said, you know, you live life 2 feet in. And he said, you make a decision and you just move forward and you jump all in. And that is so difficult for so many people to do. And you have countless examples of that throughout your entire story where that's what you do. And I'm like, but that's just who I am. And he's like, I know, but that's the part that's so special because not everybody has that skill and
Yeah.
you've mastered it. And so if you could share with people the things, the resources, the tips, the tricks, the stories of how you might help other people learn how to do that too for themselves, even if it's just a small way. And I was like, wow, okay, you're right. And that name really stuck with me, 2 feet in. And so I wrote my own book and self-published it in July of last year. And it has been a crazy journey. It has led me to, you know, launching a larger lifestyle brand and being on podcasts and meeting people I would have never met had I not written this book. So it has taken me down a path I would have never have imagined. It has pushed me, challenged me, brought me to tears for good and for bad.
Yeah.
But I've learned so much and I am so much more in tune with myself now as a result of that journey and
Oh,
really just being open to that path and open to the journey of where this book is taking me and these lessons are taking me. So I'm forever grateful actually for the book. It's great. And I do read my own book sometimes. I recorded the audiobook and so I have it on my phone as well. It's every once in a while I'll be in the car if I'm having a down moment. I'll be like, let's listen to some of me.
yes. Oh my gosh. I love that throughout your journey, you always had a coach that was
Yeah.
helping you. You know, like you said, you had a resume coach that helped you. You had a small business coach that helped you. You had a book
Mhm.
coach that helped you. Why would you hire a coach for people who are listening on the podcast, for people who are watching? What do you think are the benefits of having a coach on your side while you're doing this journey of whether you're healing or you're going through a breakup or you're going through like trying to find another job or even writing a book?
Right.
Why would you tell people it's so beneficial to hire a coach?
Oh, I'm a huge proponent of a coach for everything in life. Um, I think the obvious is they have experience in something you don't. So that's the obvious. The not so obvious about a coach is that a coach will push you in ways you never imagined. And they will ask you questions that really make you think and think inside yourself and think about how you want your life to be and how things make you feel and what things make you happy. So, a good coach is there to not just provide the tactical steps to a problem or a solution that you don't understand, but they are there to push you and challenge you. And so if anyone's looking for a coach, that should, and they're interviewing one, that needs to be part of the question that they're asking them. It's not just the skills and the talents that they're going to share, because they will, and they have decades of experience in a certain field that you can glean the highlights out of, which is great, but they will push you and that will make you better at whatever it is you're doing.
Oh, I love that. All right, Jean, as we wrap up this episode, what would be your nugget of wisdom for anyone who is listening right now?
It's funny, we were talking before the show. So I have so many nuggets of wisdom. Um,
Drop them all. I'm just
so
kidding.
many different subjects, but you got to read the book to get them all. But I will tell you one of my favorites right now that I really feel like I'm living really well. is that we all talk about happiness and trying to find a job that makes us happy, a relationship that makes us happy, or a weight that we're happy with for our bodies, right? And what I've realized, and especially in the last few years writing this book, is that for me, it's not about happiness. For me, it has been the journey to find inner peace. And for me, the gift in my book and the gift of having a public platform, like getting to speak on a podcast, is being able to share with people. If you can figure out how to have a greater sense of inner peace, that is the ticket. That is the key, because then you can ride the roller coaster wave of whatever is happening in life if you have a sense of inner peace. And it provides a sense of calm. It quiets down the chatter, and it provides a sense of calm that comes from like deep, deep, deep within. And so people who see me in person and interact with me in person, they're like, you feel calm. I'm like, I am. I actually really am. And that is inner peace. And that's what I hope people can take away from my book and from other things and be like, let me just think about it a little differently. Let me figure out, what am I going to do to help me have more inner peace? Because that to me is what makes a more fulfilling life than just happiness.
Oh, I love that. How can my audience find you?
Oh, I'm all over the place. My business, so I'm on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram. My business handle is JerMar Designs. So it's at JerMar_designs. You can find me online, www.jermardesigns.com. My book is called 2 Feet In: Lessons from an All-In Life by Jeanne Collins. You can find it on Amazon. It's hardcover, paperback, Kindle, and anywhere that you would buy an audiobook. It also exists that way too. So I encourage people, buy it, write a review, send me a note, let me know how you connect to the story, and share it with friends, because that's how we help other women become more fearless, is sharing our stories.
Oh, I love that. Thank you again for being on the podcast. Thank you again for listening to Journey of a Fearless Female. I'm your host, Paola Rosser. If you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual mentor, you can book a free discovery call with me at www.fearlessfemale.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at fearlessfemale_coach, subscribe to my YouTube channel at fearlessfemale, or find me on TikTok. I'm under at paola.rosser. And if you love this episode, make sure you hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave a review. I read every single review, and I truly appreciate the time you spend writing it.